I thought it was just one stupid bet, and I thought a kiss could stay harmless. Why did my friends push the record like it was a trophy, and why did my husband look at me like a stranger afterward? I did not expect silence to spread through our marriage like a bad song. I'm Melisande Quill, and I have always believed that confidence is a kind of protection. I work as an event coordinator, and I know how people watch faces, hands, and small movements. That afternoon, I sat on the co-working lobby bench near the glass doors, where rain made thin streams that looked like clear stitching. The air smelled like burnt coffee and floor cleaner, and the vending machine hummed with a tired, steady sound. I kept my phone low against my thigh because I liked the feeling of holding a secret in plain sight. My charm bracelet had a cracked clasp, and it snagged on my sleeve again, which annoyed me more than it should have. I told myself the bet was harmless because a bet is just a game with rules. Bria and Tam had dared me the night before, and they acted like I was boring for hesitating. They said it would be quick, and they said it would prove I still had spark, which sounded like a compliment even when it was not. I liked the way they looked at me when they talked like that, because it made me feel chosen. Rowan would not understand that kind of social pressure because he thinks respect should not be tested. He thinks stability is the same thing as love, and sometimes that feels like a cage. I knew I would tell him later, and I knew I would say it like a funny story, because humour usually turns sharp edges into soft ones. Rowan walked in from the street with wet hair at the edges, and he carried 2 paper cups like he was bringing peace into the room. He sat beside me, close enough that I could feel warmth through his jacket, and he asked why my phone kept buzzing like a small insect trapped behind glass. I answered with a light tone, and I said it was the girls planning Saturday because women always plan too much. He asked what kind of plans needed so many messages, and he kept his voice controlled, like he was trying not to accuse me. I tilted my screen away and smiled, because a smile can stop a question before it grows teeth. He pointed out that my face looked proud and defensive at the same time, which was unfairly accurate, and I told him he was reading into nothing. He tried again, and he did not sound angry, which almost bothered me more. He asked what changed lately because he used to feel included in my weekends, and now he felt like an audience member. I said he was being dramatic, and I said he was acting like a suspicious person without proof. He glanced at the lobby wall clock, and he mentioned the time because he always notices time. He asked when I agreed to a club bet, and he referenced the message preview he had seen flash on my lock screen, which included a trophy emoji and a short word that looked like kiss. He asked what I expected him to accept as normal after that kind of talk, because marriage is not a stage where people win points. I laughed softly and told him he was making a big deal out of a joke, because men often pretend they are calm when they are actually controlling. Rowan stayed steady, and his calmness made my friend's attitude feel louder in my head. He asked who would be there on Saturday, and he pointed to the torn corner of my co-working day pass on the table because I had fidgeted with it while I texted. He asked for one clear answer, and he asked it like a trap that needed facts, not feelings. I answered by saying it would be my usual circle, and I said he did not need names because it was not an interview. He asked why I was hiding names if nothing was wrong, and he asked what kind of respect I thought he deserved in public. He said he did not want to be the man standing near me while my friends dared me to disrespect him. He offered a simple boundary, and he said I should not let my friends push me into humiliating games, because those games do not stay small once cameras come out. He suggested we talk after daycare pickup tomorrow, with coffee and no phones, and he said he wanted honesty more than excuses. I brushed it off with practiced ease, because I have talked people out of anger before. I told him he was policing my fun, and I said I was allowed to have a life outside him. I said real men do not panic over a rumour and a few emojis, and I watched his eyes narrow slightly, not in rage but in focus. He did not raise his voice, and he did not insult me, which made it harder to claim he was attacking. He asked again, in a softer way, why I needed an audience to feel alive. I answered that I did not need an audience, and I said his insecurity was making him imagine one. I leaned closer and kissed his cheek like a reward for staying calm, and I felt a flicker of satisfaction when his shoulders did not relax. Rowan did not accept the kiss as a reset, and he kept his attention on the actual problem. He asked what the trophy emoji meant, and he asked what the prize was supposed to be. He asked it with that careful tone he uses at work, like he is building a timeline without saying the word timeline. I told him it meant nothing, and I said friends use silly symbols because they are playful. He asked why I swiped away my screen so fast, and he asked why my smile looked rehearsed. He said he could live with a stupid joke, but he could not live with being made small in front of others. He said that if I turned him into a punchline, he would stop showing up to be laughed at. He offered a peace option again, and he suggested we set rules for nights out, like no dares that involve flirting or touching. I answered that rules were for children, and I said he was acting like a parent instead of a partner. The lobby felt colder after that, even though the heater was working. I watched people move between desks, carrying laptops and plastic water bottles, and it felt like everyone had a destination, except us. Rowan picked up his cup, and he asked if I could at least promise that Saturday would not be about humiliating anyone. I said it would be fine, and I made my voice sound bored, because boredom can make someone's concern look silly. He looked at my bracelet, and he asked why I kept wearing something that was broken. I told him it was just a clasp, and I said, not everything needs to be fixed right away. He nodded once and his face stayed calm, but his jaw tightened like he was holding a thought behind his teeth. When I stood up, my phone buzzed again, and the vibration ran into my palm like a pulse. A cloud sync notification flashed on the lock screen, and it showed a small upload bar beside a word that looked harmless. I swiped it away too fast because I did not want Rowan to ask what it meant. Rowan noticed the speed anyway, and he asked what just uploaded because shared accounts can move things without permission. I answered that it was nothing important, and I said phones do strange things all the time. He did not argue with that, which was the first time his silence felt like a choice. I walked toward the glass doors, and the rain outside looked heavy and stubborn, like it would not stop for anyone. Behind me, Rowan stayed on the bench for a moment, holding his cup without drinking, and I told myself I was still in control, even as the broken clasp scratched my wrist like a warning. I kept telling myself that the co-working lobby scene was finished, because I had walked away smiling, and that usually meant I had won. The next afternoon, the daycare parking lot looked like a slow river of cars, and the air smelled like wet asphalt mixed with cheap vanilla air fresheners. I stood in the pickup line under a crooked metal sign that warned about idling, and I watched parents tap their phones with tired thumbs. My screen kept lighting up with Bria's name, then Tam's name, then a string of laughing emojis that made the whole thing look lighter than it was. I adjusted my cracked charm bracelet and let the broken clasp scrape my skin, because the small sting helped me stay sharp. Rowan stood beside me with Leony's spare jacket folded over his arm, and his calm posture looked almost insulting, like he had rehearsed patience. A woman near the front of the line turned her head and smiled at me in a way that felt delayed, like she was checking if I noticed her noticing. I heard a whisper behind me that included the name of a club I had not said out loud to anyone at Daycare, and I refused to turn around. Rowan asked, in that controlled tone he uses when he is gathering facts, why people were suddenly acting like we were a story. He pointed to the daycare door where a staff member held a tablet, and he mentioned that the sign-out screen showed timestamps and names. He asked why a teacher had asked if we had a late night, and he asked it as if he already knew something and wanted me to confirm it. I told him gossip spreads fast in places like this, and I said he should stop feeding it with his serious face. He said he was not feeding anything, and he asked when I came home last night because he remembered the exact minute he heard my keys. I answered with a shrug, because shrugging can make a question look childish. Rowan tried again, and he did not let my shrug close the conversation. He pointed at Leony's cubby label through the window because her name was printed in bright bubble letters, and he said even our child's space felt exposed when adults behaved carelessly. He asked where I was after 11:40, And he referenced the blue glow of the streetcar schedule board, because he had seen it reflected in my hair when I slipped into bed. He asked why my location history showed the entertainment district if I claimed I went straight home, and he asked what I expected him to accept as normal after a direct contradiction like that. I answered by accusing him of tracking me, and I said it was controlling to use phone features as evidence. He said he was not tracking me, and he said shared devices create records without anyone trying, which made me feel cornered. He offered a simple compromise, and he said if I wanted trust, I could tell him who I was with and what the plan was for Saturday. I refused to give names, and I said he was acting like he deserved a report. Leony ran out with her backpack bouncing, and she smelled like finger paint and sunscreen, which should have made the moment softer. Rowan bent down to zip her jacket, and his hands moved carefully like he was protecting the child, even while he was hurt. I watched him do that and told myself he was performing, because that made it easier to stay proud. In the car, Leony asked why I looked angry, and I told her I was not angry because I did not want my child to learn my real emotions. Rowan waited until Leony started humming to herself. Then he tried another calm question that was harder to dodge. He asked why Bria's name was always the first notification lately, and he referenced the small crack in my phone case near the camera lens, because he had noticed it while I had been filming Leony at the park. He asked what kind of win my friends were chasing, and why my marriage had to be the playground for it. I told him he was dramatizing harmless friendships, and I said he was jealous of my social life because he had none. At my boutique studio, the back office smelled like fabric steam and hairspray, and the fluorescent light made everything look slightly sick. I dropped my bag on the chair with the peeling vinyl seat, and I opened the group chat as if it was a control panel. Bria had sent a voice note, and the waveform icon looked smug, like it already knew it would be replayed. I listened with the volume low, and I heard Bria laughing about the bet, talking about how the whole thing would be legendary if I committed. Tam added a message telling me to wear something that would make strangers stare, because attention would make it easier. I liked the way their words painted me as a main character, because I have always hated feeling ordinary. I told myself that Rowan's discomfort was the price of being with a woman who had a life. While I was answering Bria, I saw a little album icon pop up near my Photos app, and I felt a quick pinch of worry that I pushed away. I had set our family devices to share albums long ago because it used to feel romantic and efficient. Now it felt like a trap I had built and forgotten. I clicked away from it and focused on work, because work always gives me an excuse to ignore guilt. A client called about a seating chart, and I spoke in my calm, professional voice, like I was the kind of woman who never makes messy choices. When the call ended, Rowan appeared in the doorway holding Leony's water bottle, the one with a fading rocket sticker that always peels at the corners. His face looked too still, and he asked why the bottle was still in the car after I claimed I was rushing home last night. I told him I forgot it, and I said he was being ridiculous to connect a water bottle to a timeline. He did not accept that, and he did not raise his voice either. He asked for one clean explanation tied to something real, and he pointed to the bottle's sticker, because Leony had chosen it with him at a small shop near the river. He said the sticker reminded him of promises, because kids remember details even when adults pretend they do not matter. He asked why Bria's name was glowing on my screen while I stood in a workplace office, and he asked what I expected him to think when I hid my phone like a teenager. I answered by saying he was embarrassing me at work, and I said he should not bring private problems into my professional space. Rowan said he had come only to return the bottle, but he could not ignore what was happening anymore. He suggested we talk with a trusted elder, maybe his mother, because Sonia is calm and does not play games. I called that humiliating, and I said he wanted allies because he could not handle me alone. Rowan tried to set a boundary in a way that sounded practical, not threatening. He asked that I leave the friend chat for 1 week, and he asked that I stop accepting dares that involve flirting, because that kind of public behavior affects our family image. He referenced the studio's glass display shelf where my wedding photos sat beside a ribbon from a past event, and he asked what those objects were supposed to mean if I acted like vows were flexible. He asked, as a trap question, whether Saturday's plan included filming, because he had seen my phone storage show a growing video folder earlier in the day. He asked what I expected him to accept as normal if I let friends turn intimacy into a scoreboard. I responded with moral superiority, and I said I was honest because I was not hiding an affair, which was a carefully chosen half-truth. He kept his tone even and said honesty includes details, not just confident labels. I replied that details were none of his business if he trusted me, which was exactly backward, and I knew it. I walked him out to the studio hallway where the floor tiles had tiny glitter flecks that catch light like dust. Rowan paused near the fire exit sign, and he asked one more question that felt sharper because it was quiet. He asked why I needed strangers to validate me if I already had a husband who showed up every day. He asked it like he was trying to understand rather than punish, which made me want to punish him anyway. I answered with mockery, and I said he was acting like a therapist, which is what insecure men do when they cannot compete. Rowan said he was not competing, and he said marriage should not require competition at all. He offered a peace option again, and he suggested we set clear rules for nights out, then review them together, like adults. I told him rules were control, and I said control kills attraction, which was a line I knew would sting. When he left, he did not slam the door, and he did not glare back, which removed the easy villain I wanted. I sat at my desk and stared at the little rockets on Leony's sticker, and my throat felt dry even though I had water nearby. Bria sent another message demanding that I stop getting cold feet, and Tam sent a meme of a man crying, calling it Rowan energy. I laughed and typed something cruel back, because laughter is how my friend group treats discomfort. Then a notification slid down on my phone, bright and uninvited, saying a recent video had been added to our shared family album. The thumbnail was blurred, but the colours were unmistakable, and the upload bar sat at 100% as if it was proud of itself. I told myself that shared albums were boring places nobody checked, and I told myself I could delete it before Rowan even saw it. My fingers hovered over the screen, and the office suddenly felt too quiet, like the building was holding its breath. I heard my client's voice in my head asking about seating plans, and I wondered why my own life had no plan at all. I put my phone face down, and the cracked clasp of my bracelet scraped the desk as if it wanted attention too. Outside the office window, the street looked normal, and that normality made my choices feel louder. I stood up, smoothed my skirt, and promised myself I would explain everything later, even while I knew the explanation was already arriving without my permission. I told myself the nightclub was just a loud room with lights, and that nothing serious could happen there if I kept control of the story. The street outside was slick from earlier rain, and the line at the entrance moved in slow, annoyed steps while a bouncer checked wrists under a small heat lamp. Bria walked ahead of me like a manager, and Tam stayed close on my left side, tapping her nails against her phone case as if she was counting seconds. I could smell perfume, cold smoke, and the sharp sweetness of energy drinks mixing in the air. My cracked charm bracelet kept catching on the cuff of my jacket, and I kept tugging it loose, because small annoyances felt easier than bigger thoughts. Inside, the bass hit like a heavy heartbeat, and the dance floor looked like a moving carpet of shoulders and shiny hair. The lighting was purple and blue, and it made people's faces look unreal, like masks that had learned how to smile. Bria pulled me toward the coat check window, where a green ticket roll spun in a plastic cradle, and the clerk's hands moved fast through piles of jackets. Tam leaned close and reminded me, in that confident friend tone, that the bet only counted if it was clear on camera. I nodded, like this was normal and professional, because I plan events for a living, and I know how to turn a plan into a moment. I handed over my jacket, took the green ticket, and felt the thin paper between my fingers like a receipt from a choice I had not fully admitted. We pushed through a side corridor toward the smoking patio, and the air got colder as the door opened and shut behind us. The patio had a metal railing that felt damp to the touch, and a small heater glowed above a corner table where people were laughing too loudly. Phones were already out, and the screens floated in the dark like tiny windows. Bria lifted her camera angle and told me to stand where the neon sign would light my face, because she wanted the clip to look cinematic. I let her position me, because being directed made it easier to pretend I was not responsible. Tam adjusted my hair and made a quick joke about Rowan being asleep at home, which made the group laugh in a way that sounded eager. Jace was there, leaning on the rail with an easy grin, and he looked like he belonged to that place more than anyone else. He wore a dark shirt with rolled sleeves, and his hands moved with casual confidence as he took a sip from a plastic cup. Bria introduced him like he was a prop that had arrived on time, and Tam told him the rules in a playful way, as if rules were the only thing keeping it harmless. Jace leaned closer and asked, indirectly through his posture and the way he tilted his head, whether I was ready to commit to the dare. I laughed and nodded, because a laugh can cover fear as well as it covers guilt. I kept telling myself it was only a kiss, and that the world would not collapse because of one small performance. Bria counted down with her fingers, and I watched her nails flash in the screen light as if they were giving signals. I held the railing with my right hand, felt the cold metal through my palm, and angled my face the way I had seen other women do online. Jace leaned in, and the kiss happened fast and clean, like a staged photo moment, while several phones rose higher to catch it. I heard one person clap off beat, and I heard another laugh that sounded uncertain, like a door that did not close fully. I stepped back and smiled wide because I wanted the end of the clip to look triumphant. Bria shouted something excited, and Tam lifted her arm like I had just scored a goal, and the heat of their approval ran through me like a drug. Then I saw Rowan at the patio doorway, and the crowd noise turned into something thin and sharp in my ears. He stood still for a moment, not blocking anyone, not pushing, and not looking confused, which scared me more than anger would have. His face was calm, but his eyes had that focused look he gets when he is solving a problem at work. He did not shout my name, and he did not make a scene, even though he could have. People near him glanced back and forth, sensing a shift, and one man lowered his phone slowly, as if he suddenly remembered he had a conscience. I kept my smile on my face because smiling was my armor, and I refused to let anyone see a crack. Rowan stepped onto the patio and looked at the green coat check ticket in my hand, because I had not even noticed I was still holding it. He asked, with a controlled voice that cut through the bass, how many takes we did before the final clip, and he referenced the ticket roll color because it was a detail he could tie to a timeline. He asked what kind of marriage I expected to keep if I let my friends turn intimacy into a scoreboard for strangers. The question forced facts, and it made my friend's laughter sound smaller. I answered by laughing louder and acting like he was the one acting strange because public confidence is a weapon when you are wrong. I told him, indirectly with my tone and posture, that he was ruining a fun night and that he looked insecure standing near the door. Rowan did not match my energy, and that calm made me look harsher by comparison. He asked who decided the bet rules, and he asked why my friends needed a camera more than they needed respect. He pointed out the neon sign reflection in Bria's phone screen, and he asked why I chose a place where everyone would see me. He asked what I wanted him to do with that image later, when our daughter asked questions, and he asked it like he had already imagined that future. I shrugged and told him he was being dramatic, because I needed the crowd to think he was the problem. Tam tried to laugh it off, but her laugh broke early, and Bria lowered her phone like she had suddenly remembered consequences exist. Rowan stepped a little closer, still not touching me, still not blocking me, and he set a boundary in practical terms. He said he would not attend events with my friends if the goal was to test him or humiliate him, and he said he would not accept being treated like a background character. He offered a peace option, and he suggested we leave and talk in the morning with coffee and no phones because he wanted truth without an audience. I refused the peace option because accepting it would mean admitting I had done something wrong. I told him he was punishing me and I said he was jealous that I could still get attention. That line felt powerful for a second, until I saw a woman near the heater stare at me with open disapproval. We moved off the patio toward the rideshare pickup area, and the night air felt colder against my cheeks. The sidewalk was crowded with people waiting, and car headlights made quick white flashes across faces. Rowan walked beside me, not grabbing my arm, not snapping, and not begging, and his restraint made my irritation grow. He asked with steady precision why Jace had called me by a nickname that only my friend group used. He referenced the curb sign number at the pickup zone because it was a visible marker that made the moment real. He asked how that nickname traveled from my private circle to a stranger at a club, and he asked what I expected him to accept as normal after that detail. I dodged by saying nicknames are common and that Rowan was searching for betrayal everywhere. Rowan kept his voice even and stated a consequence in life terms rather than threats. He said he would stop participating in my social plans until I could show basic respect. And he said he would not let our home routine be shaped by my friends' games. He suggested a calm morning talk again, and he offered to listen without interrupting if I gave him an honest timeline. I answered by calling him sensitive, because mocking his emotions was easier than facing my own. I texted Bria while we stood near the pickup curb, and I told her to post the clip anyway because I wanted the group to keep cheering for me. Bria hesitated, and her pause felt like a small betrayal against me, even though it was actually sanity. In the rideshare back seat, the driver's screen glowed blue and the car smelled like stale mint gum. Rowan sat on one side and kept his hands folded, and I sat on the other side and watched streetlights slide across the window like fast water. I could feel my heart beating, but I refused to call it fear, because fear would mean I had lost control. Rowan's phone lit up in his lap with a shared album alert, and he did not turn it toward me. He looked at the screen once, then locked it without any dramatic movement. That small, quiet action felt heavier than shouting because it hinted that he had seen something before I had a chance to edit the story. I tried to speak first, but my words felt clumsy, and I did not like the sound of my own uncertainty. Rowan asked, with a calm tone that made the driver glance in the mirror, whether the clip was already in our family album, and whether I had tried to delete it. He referenced the tiny crack in the corner of my bracelet clasp because it had scraped against the seatbelt buckle and made a soft metallic tick. He asked what I expected him to think when my private life uploaded itself into a shared space, and he asked what kind of trust could survive that kind of exposure. I answered with anger, because anger is easier than shame, and I told him he was acting like a victim for attention. The driver turned up the radio slightly as if music could cover the tension, and I stared out at the passing storefronts. I told myself I would explain later, and I told myself Rowan would calm down once he realized it meant nothing. Rowan stayed silent for a few seconds, then he said he wanted facts, not performance, and he said he would ask again in the morning if I refused tonight. That measured patience felt like a door closing softly, not a door slamming, and I hated it because I could not fight it. The car rolled forward, and I watched the city lights blur, while the shared album alert stayed bright in my mind like a stain I could not scrub away. I woke up on Sunday with a stubborn confidence that felt like makeup on skin that needed soap. The apartment was quiet except for the soft rattle of the heat vent, and Rowan moved around the bedroom in slow, careful steps, like he did not want to wake Leony. I watched him from the edge of the bed and told myself his calm was a tactic, because I needed it to be a tactic. When he folded Leony's small cardigan and placed it on the chair, his hands looked steady in a way that made my own thoughts feel messy. I asked, indirectly with my tone, if he was still sulking about a club moment, and I acted like my words were light and logical. Rowan answered without sharpness, and he said we were going to his mother's brunch, and he wanted the day to stay respectful, which sounded like a simple request but landed like a warning. The drive to Sonia's townhouse took 20 minutes, and the sky was a pale grey that made the streets look washed. Leony hummed in the back seat and pressed her forehead to the window, leaving small fog circles that disappeared quickly. Rowan kept both hands on the wheel, and he asked calmly if I had deleted the video from the shared album. He referenced the green coat check ticket I had left on the dresser because he had picked it up and placed it beside my keys in a neat line. He asked, as a trap question, whether the upload happened before we even left the club, and what I expected him to tell our daughter if she saw it later. I responded with minimization and said it was a silly clip that no child would ever find, and I accused him of searching for pain. Rowan said he was not searching, and he said shared devices do not ask permission before they spread things, which made my chest tighten even though I refused to show it. Sonia's townhouse smelled like roasted coffee and warm bread the moment we stepped inside, and the hallway light gave everything a soft yellow glow. Her dining table was already set with a lemon-stitched tablecloth, and the forks were lined up so evenly that it looked like a display. I liked Sonia's house because it always felt controlled, but that morning the control made me feel watched. Elias was there, standing near the doorway with his jacket still on, and his eyes flicked to Rowan's face before he looked at me. My mother, Nina, sat near the window with her hands around a teacup, and she smiled at me like she wanted peace more than truth. Leony ran to the living room rug where Sonia kept a basket of toys, and her small shoes tapped quickly on the wood floor. I started talking too brightly because bright talk can drown out tension if you push hard enough. I commented on Sonia's flowers and I praised the bread, and I asked Elias about his work as if we were just a normal family. Rowan stayed quiet at first, but he was not withdrawn, and he still poured water for Leony and asked her to sit properly. Sonia watched the room the way she always does, with a polite face that notices everything. When Leony returned to the table with jam on her fingers, she looked at me with a serious expression that felt too old for her age. She asked why Mommy kissed the clubman for points, and she said the word points like it was part of a game she had learned. The air changed instantly, and forks paused mid-movement, and even the kitchen clock seemed louder in the sudden gap. I laughed first because laughter is what I reach for when I feel exposed. I told everyone Leony had misunderstood a silly adult joke, and I tried to wipe her fingers with a napkin too quickly. Rowan did not laugh, and he did not scold Leony either, which made his calm feel sharper. He looked at Leony's jam-sticky hands, and then looked at me, and he asked, in a steady voice, who taught her that this was for points. He referenced the little paper crown sticker on Leony's placemat, because Sonia always gives her a new sticker at brunch, and he said kids connect stickers to rewards. He asked, as a trap question, whether I had said the word points in front of our child, and what I expected Leony to learn about love if I treated our marriage like a scoreboard. I replied with a defensive tone and said he was using our child to shame me, and I claimed it was unfair to question my parenting over one phrase. Rowan stayed controlled and tried again without raising his voice. He said he was not shaming me in front of family, and he said he was asking for basic stability because Leony's world depends on it. He asked why Leony knew there was a man at a club at all, and he referenced the small smear of jam on Leony's sleeve as if it proved how quickly little details spread. He said he wanted an honest explanation that matched the facts, not a story built for social approval. I answered with moral superiority and told him he was being controlling, and I said women should not be punished for having fun. Elias shifted his weight, and his face stayed serious, which made my stomach tense even as I refused to admit fear. Sonia cleared her throat softly, and she asked me to explain because Leony's question was not random. I said it was a silly bet between friends, and I said it did not mean anything, because meaning is what I needed to deny. Sonia's eyes narrowed just a little, and she asked what kind of friends turn marriage into a bet. Nina tried to smooth it over by saying, modern people do silly things, and she smiled at Rowan like he should be flexible. Rowan did not argue with Nina, and he did not snap at Sonia, which made him look mature in a way that made me look reckless. He asked calmly whether there was more than one video, and whether I had tried to delete a longer clip that someone else still had. He referenced the lemon-stitched tablecloth and said even this quiet table felt unsafe if I brought humiliation into it. Elias finally spoke, and his voice was flat with disappointment rather than anger. He asked for the timeline, and he asked who filmed it, because those details matter when family reputation gets dragged. I tried to joke and I said people were being dramatic over a kiss, but my joke landed badly. One of Sonia's neighbours had dropped off a pie earlier, and the box still sat on the counter, and the normal sight made the situation feel worse because it showed how ordinary the day should have been. Rowan turned slightly toward Elias and Sonia, and he said he did not want them fighting my battles for me, but he needed witnesses because I kept changing the story. He said the shared album upload time was not a feeling, and it was not an opinion, and it did not care about my confidence. Rowan made a second clear attempt, and his words stayed measured. He referenced Sonia's wall clock because it chimed once as he spoke, and he said the chime reminded him that time passes whether we fix things or not. He asked, as a trap question, why Bria's partner had forwarded him a longer clip if it was truly harmless, and why that partner looked uncomfortable enough to send it privately. He said he needed a home where respect was predictable, and he said he wanted me to apologize today to Sonia and Elias without excuses, because I had brought humiliation into their family space. He offered a peace option that sounded simple, and he said we could reset rules and repair trust if I stopped defending the stunt. I refused, because refusing felt like strength, and I said apologies were for people who had done something wrong. I accused him of teaming up with his family to pressure me, and I said he was trying to win by numbers instead of love. Sonia's face changed then, and the polite softness left her expression. She said my confidence looked like cruelty, and she said she would not normalize it in front of Leony. Nina looked down at her teacup and rotated the spoons slowly, and she did not meet my eyes. Elias stood up and said he was done listening to jokes about boundaries, and he asked Rowan if he wanted to leave early. Rowan nodded without drama, and he began packing Leony's small snack bag with the same calm care he uses when he does daycare mornings. Leony looked between us with a confused face, and she asked if we were mad, and my throat tightened because children do not ask for performances, they ask for safety. I told her we were fine, and I made my voice bright again, but it sounded thin in the quiet room. In the hallway, as we were putting on shoes, I tried one last time to pull the room back under my control. I said Rowan was overreacting and embarrassing me, and I said family should not turn against me over one night out. Rowan looked at the coat hook where Sonia kept a small brass key bowl, and he said, respect is not measured by how many times something happens, but by what it teaches the people watching. He did not lecture, and he did not threaten, and he simply repeated that he needed honesty and stability. That calm repetition made me feel like I was shouting into a pillow because nothing bounced back. Sonia hugged Leony and told her she loved her. Then she looked at me with a firm, quiet disappointment that felt heavier than anger. As we stepped outside, the air was cold enough to sting my cheeks, and the street was quiet except for distant traffic. Rowan buckled Leony into her car seat, checked the strap twice, and then closed the door gently. His hands did not shake, and his face did not beg, and that steadiness made me feel suddenly less powerful. When we got into the car, Rowan's phone made a small reminder ping, and the screen lit up with a neutral calendar title that read, Cedar Mall, 10:15 a.m. He dismissed it with one thumb movement, and he did not explain anything, while I stared at the glass reflection of my own face and wondered why silence suddenly felt like the loudest sound in the world. I watched Rowan at the public library the way you watch a stranger who still knows your routines, because he was sitting in a study cubicle near the window with his back straight and his phone face down beside a small notepad. The fluorescent lights made the table look pale and cold, and the plastic chair legs squeaked each time someone shifted nearby, but Rowan did not move much. He wrote dates in neat lines, then paused to check something on his screen, and I told myself he was being dramatic because calling it drama made it feel smaller. When he stood up, he carried a thin binder labelled Utilities, and it looked thicker than bills should look, which gave me a tight feeling I refused to name. I followed him into the hallway between the stacks, and I asked why he was acting like an accountant for our marriage, because I wanted him to lose patience first. Rowan stayed calm and asked, in a careful trap question tied to the place, what happened between 12:08 and 12:22 in the longer clip, and why the shared album upload time matched the moment I claimed nothing happened. He referenced the cubicle number plate on the side panel, and he mentioned the bright orange page tab sticking out of his notepad, as if those small details could pin me to a truth. He asked what I expected him to accept as normal after a timeline that did not match my words, and I replied that he was obsessed with minutes because he could not handle feelings. Rowan did not argue with that insult, and instead he said he wanted one honest explanation that did not change each time he asked. Later, in our apartment stairwell landing, the air smelled like old paint and someone's laundry soap, and my bracelet clasp slipped against the concrete step with a faint scrape. Rowan tried again with a different approach, and he asked, as another trap question tied to a new detail, why my broken clasp fell there if I had not worn the bracelet to the club like a trophy. He said he needed stability for Leony, and he said he would separate routines if I kept turning respect into a game, starting with money and access and schedules. He offered a peace option, and he said we could sit at the kitchen table tomorrow after daycare with phones off and talk through one clean timeline, then set clear rules for nights out. I answered with sharper mockery, and I said he was punishing me because he felt weak, which made his eyes go still in a way that looked like distance, not anger. The next morning I saw a calendar reminder on his phone that read, Harbour Park, 9:05 a.m., and he dismissed it quickly while keeping his voice polite. In the mailroom, he held an envelope with the bank's logo, and he told me without heat that we had an appointment and that he would handle things properly if I kept refusing honesty. I walked into the bank lobby with Rowan and Elias, and the quiet felt heavier than any argument we had avoided. The air smelled like citrus sanitizer, and the pen at the check-in desk left a sticky film on my fingers that would not rub off easily. Rowan spoke to the receptionist in a steady voice, gave our names, and kept his phone face down, as if he had practiced being calm in public. I tried to smile like nothing was wrong, but my throat felt dry when the banker led us to a small office with a glass wall and a faint buzzing light. Rowan placed a neat packet on the desk, and Elias sat in the corner chair with his hands folded, looking at me like he was done believing my version. The banker explained changes to our accounts, mentioned freezes on joint spending and autopay, and described deadlines in a neutral tone that did not care about my feelings. Rowan answered questions with careful dates, referenced the shared album upload time and the longer clip that Bria's partner forwarded, and said he had asked me for a clear timeline many times. I interrupted to say it was a joke and that he was punishing me, but the banker kept repeating policy words, and Elias did not defend me when I looked at him. A process server stepped into the office doorway, asked the banker to confirm my identity, and handed me a formal filing that included temporary financial protections and a scheduled hearing date 3 weeks away. I tried to argue that this was cruel in a public place, yet the server calmly explained the response deadline and directed questions to the listed instructions. Rowan did not raise his voice, and he only said that future communication would be in writing for logistics, especially for Leony's schedule. When I reached for my card at the lobby coffee kiosk afterward, the screen flash declined, and the barista's polite pause made my face burn as if everyone could read the reason.